All right. No, I think we're good. Let me play the intro and we'll kick things off.
I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses while controlling risk. So, if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it. Are you thinking of growing your business or beginning a journey into entrepreneurship? Take a shortcut to success by buying an existing and profitable business the right way. Visit businessbuyeradvantage.com and learn more about my online training, group coaching, and consulting services designed to help you win.
Welcome, everyone. Today, I am joined by Jennifer Lee, who is a financial planner that joins us from Florida and is the author of the book. Tell us about the book.
It's called Squeeze the Juice, Live Your Life, and Then Leave a Legacy.
Right. And today we're going to be talking about financial planning for business owners, but we're going to put a little bit of a twist on this too, because we're going to be talking about a particular subset of clientele that you find yourself working with quite often. Why don't we get a little bit, Jennifer, of your story? Can you tell us about your background and how you came into the world of financial planning?
Sure. I think I've pretty much gotten this honest. I started going to financial planning meetings with my father when I was a little kid. So, I have a family history of being in the wealth management business. But I have a degree in business and economics with a minor in accounting, and then got pulled away from the accounting world into the financial side of things, and I absolutely love it. I have a comfort level with money that I find that most of my clients don't,
Hmm.
and that's okay. So we try to make that very approachable and use money as a resource to get the things that you want to have in life. And like you, use a business to get you lifestyle and things that you want for yourself and for your family in the future. Um, I've been in the industry 28 years or so, and love it. Relocated to Florida about 12 years ago, and now focus more specifically on people in transition. So
Okay.
going through divorce, that kind of thing.
So let me ask you a couple of broader questions about entrepreneurs and financial planning. Can you give us an idea of in what ways an entrepreneur's financial plan might be very different from that of an employed person, for example?
Consistency of cash flow often.
Okay.
As when you're starting your business, it's there's a lot of components to it, and oftentimes you don't have excess cash flow to be planning for yourself and setting money aside. As you develop in your business, hopefully, you're really accumulating funds, and you have significant cash flow, and then you have challenges with taxes, and there's fund strategies that we can deploy at that point. But I find that entrepreneurs are challenged a little bit in that their focus is on the business, not on themselves and their family, until they're making too much money and they're in pain about taxes, and then they say, "Help me," and then they're ready.
Would you say then that do you meet a lot of people who maybe kind of ignore financial planning or investments until they reach that point where suddenly they have of this big flow of money that they then have to feel like they have to manage the tax problem, maybe even more so than get a plan in order?
Sure. Unfortunately, yes. There's lots of strategies that you can deploy during your business ownership that will really benefit you in the long term. Also, when you're looking at selling a profitable business, you want to look at what kind of strategies you can set up in terms of the way that you're going to structure the deal that might be to your advantage. So, unfortunately, and I'm sure this happens with you as well, people come to you after they've got the start of a business deal, and it's a little bit too late. So I really try to get with business owners that are The most important time is this crunch time. It's that 5 to 8 years right before you're ready to sell. You're getting good cash flow. You're paying too much in taxes. So what kind of things can we put in place to plan your exit strategy?
What do the now, so imagining the business owner that has a successful business, do the strategies change considerably depending on the size of the cash flow? Like, would a person with a $300,000 income have a substantially different kind of plan than someone with $1 million income? Would it be proportionate, or are there literally different kinds of things that you'd be doing at the two different levels of income?
Excellent question. Well, there's kind of subsets of each of those. So somebody who's in the $300,000 mark can put together a retirement plan for their business. Now, the next question is, how many employees are there? Are there any? Is it just you? Is it just you and a spouse? If it's just you and a spouse, you can do something like a solo K, and that allows you to shelter the most money. You can take advantage of a Roth component if you want. If you have employees, then you have to decide, how much am I willing to give to my employees? In which case, that's typically at least 3%.
Hmm.
So you can do, a simple plan, which is not expensive, but doesn't allow you to put away as much money as a 401k plan. So there's retirement plans and structures that are, our job is to understand the client and understand what their goal is. Most business owners, most entrepreneurs say, I want to put away as much money as I can for me. And then the employees, if I have to, tell me what the minimum amount is there.
And I don't want to get into specifics, because
Yeah,
obviously, if anyone out there is thinking about these things, they need to get proper advice that
absolutely.
considers all the circumstances. But what you're talking about is, you're talking not just about investment opportunities that are open to people, but you're talking about engineering the benefits and retirement plans of the business to create the rule set that allows the business owner to prosper through the mechanism of their business, which
Absolutely.
which is something that employed people just can't do. It's just not on the table for them.
So employed people, they already typically have a retirement plan structure, and it is what it is. And you can
Mm,
you can take advantage of that or not. When you're self-employed, you have to create that yourself. So
mm.
in that $300,000 range, you're limited to traditional things that you would have as you worked as an employee. When you get to the $1 million range, you can do some more interesting things. Um, ERISA approved plans, and you can really structure a lot of money for yourself. You will also have to take care of some of your employees, but there are some really interesting ways to be able to shelter a lot of money from tax if that's your goal.
Could you give us, in broad strokes, sort of a story, maybe of someone who came to you with that kind of problem, and how what the solution sort of looked like?
What does it
I,
look
I,
like? Right.
again, you can't be specific, but I'd love
Sure.
to
Well, I'll
hear
just
how
give
it
you a
worked out.
general idea of somebody that we recently worked with. So this is a structure of a pension plan. So what I always say to people is, okay, if you're making $600,000 or more and taxes are a pain point, here's my question to you. If we could put away $100,000 and toward retirement, and you would be able to keep at least 85% of it, would you be interested? Okay. And so that's the type of pension plan that I'm talking about. So we just recently, with a client that is making a taxable income between W-2 and profits, just over $1 million. We were able to shelter his three employees, including himself. We were able to shelter 467,000, something to that effect, into this pension plan. Now, it happens to be that he was able to benefit from 97% of that. Well, that's a laydown. That's that. What is the question? If
That's a merchant discount fee if you accept Visa in your business.
yeah, I mean, it's a
Yeah,
beautiful thing. So
yeah.
so that's something that you want to do when you have you want to have a reasonable time period, 5 years. You want to be able to fund something like that. So you want to have a reasonable comfort level that your business has some consistency of cash flow. There's some flexibility in there, but there's some interesting things you can do.
Okay. So when you had reached out, to talk about coming on my show, I went and checked out your LinkedIn profile. That's where I learned about your book. And it was interesting because I was reading through your LinkedIn profile, and you talk about how you work with a lot of, in particular, women who are going through transition, loss, perhaps the death of a spouse or
Mhm.
divorce. I like, I find it interesting every time I meet a business person who has targeted or carved out a specific niche of an industry. It always is interesting to me how that was identified. How did you first come upon the idea of putting yourself out there as someone who really worked with this particular group?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. When you start in the career in wealth management, you want to take on anybody you can because you're trying to build up assets and build up people you can talk to and develop relationships and clients. And people will tell you who are experienced in the industry that you should have a niche. And you deflect that because you can't even imagine just doing a pigeonhole idea
You
because
want anyone who will buy some investments, put some
Y
money
I
somewhere. Yeah.
mean, you want any opportunity that's available. So, and we all know as we're seasoned in our career that you really need to hone that down into what is your secret sauce, what's your specialty. So, um, it happened to me kind of accidentally. I moved to Florida and I started a network because I hadn't known anybody in Florida. I lived in Maryland all my life, and woman after woman would lean away from me in a networking meeting and say, "I have one of you," or "My husband handles that." And I really had to look at. I just took a step back and I thought, okay, well, this is not working. So let me think about who it is that I love to work with. Who do I serve? Who are my best clients, my best advocates? And I really went back. I used the Simon Sinek, "What's your why?" And I went
Mhm.
back to really craft my message and to focus on who I want. And really, I work with women in financial transition. So somebody going through a divorce, loss of spouse, buying or selling a business, relocating to a new area, big changes. There's a
Yeah.
lot of balls in the air. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of planning that needs to happen. And that's really where I think that's my secret sauce. That's where I can add the most value.
And so, when I think of, you know, a woman going through a divorce, I mean, very stereotypically, we think that she's divorcing her husband, and maybe her husband was the entrepreneur. How often does that stereotype hold with your practice?
Mm, it's probably something like 70% of the time.
Okay,
Um,
and the other side is the woman was the entrepreneur.
the other
Okay.
side is the woman was the entrepreneur or the what I call the moneyed party. So typically, in relationships, we all divide and conquer tasks, right?
Hmm.
And historically, men have handled the money. Just not that women can't don't have the aptitude or ability. It's just that not the interest, and the husband has handled that. That's why these women were saying my husband handles that. Um,
Right.
and so a lot of my clientele are what I call the non-moneyed party, and so it happens to be women.
Okay. And so, tell us a little bit about that, because not only are you talking about an emotionally charged series of events, right? The whole, we can't make this work. We're going to go separate ways. But the person that you're working with may lack visibility into what has been going on, what the business is, what the wealth is, etc. And I'm sure, like, obviously, but with the help of an attorney and all these people that are on this team, you're trying to help her. But tell me a little bit about navigating that scenario. Like, what are some of the first things that happen once this whole thing gets start set into motion?
Yeah, it's a lot. I like to say it takes a village to get you through a divorce, and oftentimes that involves your divorce attorney, and there's a variety of different kinds. You want to make sure you have the right one. If it's not a contentious divorce, you don't need a litigator, right? If you're pretty much just say, I love you, but I don't want to be married to you anymore, and you both kind of agree, then maybe you can do collaborative divorce. I have a number of people who I've helped navigate the assets, the asset division and discussions, and they'll just go to one attorney and have them write up the divorce. That's wonderful. That's what we go for.
Mm,
But there are other people who get in the far end, and you really do need a litigation attorney. So if your spouse has hired a litigator and you hired a collaborative attorney, you might get eaten alive in this process. So part of what I take on as part of my responsibility is coaching them through that process, right? Do you have the right attorney? Let's ask the right questions and gathering what it is based on their jurisdiction where they live, the number of years they've been married, the kids, who works and what kind of incomes you have. Do you own businesses? All these different factors. What has your attorney told you can expect in terms of a split? And so we know
right.
what your best case scenario is, and we can negotiate from there and decide whether or not you need to go all the way. And what's it going to cost to do that?
And so you said the jurisdiction. So you're working with people in multiple states.
Yeah, everywhere.
Okay, okay. And so for those people, when they're going through that divorce, you're often looking at some kind of division or split of the assets. How many of your clients have an income, or are a lot of these people, this split will have to set them up for the balance of time because they don't have a career of their own?
I would say, again, in that split, probably 30% have their own significant income.
Okay,
70% are more dependent financially. A lot of them, though, as a couple, have accumulated massive amounts of money, which is fantastic. But now it's an adjustment of, okay, if you have a $7 million, estate combined, now you're going to live on 3.5, and that's going to last you the rest of your life. What is your lifestyle? And we need to adjust that. We need to talk about what your cash flow can be. What can you expect so you don't run out of money?
I can imagine some of those expectations. That would be a big step down for a lot of people, right?
It can be. It can be. And a lot of times that delays a divorce because you can't figure out how you're going to do this on your own.
How often does in the situations that you see, how often does the situation call for the sale of the business? I've personally experienced it where maybe both people in the couple were part of the operation, and in going through their divorce, they both realize that neither one of them maybe wants to or is able to keep it going on their own. They end up selling it as part of the marriage breakdown.
Yeah, thus far, um, the business owner divorce scenarios I've had, for the most part, there's been one person who is the lead person in the business, and
Mm,
so the spouse was more of a secondary support in the industry, so they can function without it. But really, then it comes down to transparency of the numbers, evaluation of what the business is worth, evaluation of future cash flow and the ability to generate income, the efficacy of those documents, right? You
mhm.
own a business, you can maneuver a lot of things in the numbers to make it not look so. I've got a client right now who um, she's not really involved in the business yet. They've been married 33 years and they have a thriving business, but the tax returns show barely anything. Yet the
Yeah,
spouse
we talk
gets,
we talk about that on this channel quite often. Yeah,
yeah,
we know what you're talking about. Yeah, and so in that scenario, like if that business was going to be put up for sale, we'd be talking about normalizing the financial statements, and maybe some personal things are in there, or all that kind of stuff.
for
And
sure.
so this is a similar kind of thing that you'd be looking at to try to figure out what's the real value of that business potentially. And do you is it frequent that there's big disagreements about what the value of that business is? 'Cause that's the
Um,
one amorphous kind of thing in the estate that you're talking about. I mean,
sure.
bank accounts, real estate, all this stuff, you can put your finger on it and you can figure out what it's worth. But that business and the business's cash flow, especially if it's kind of non-transparent what's going on there, that
Yeah.
can be the real contentious part that people could probably get into lots of long drawn out discussions about.
Well, there's definitely lots of long drawn out discussions, but more frequently on my side in dealing with these things is the lack of transparency. You provide tax returns and say, okay, but this is what it is. Like, we don't really make any money. The challenge is, the non-moneyed spouse might just take that for what it's worth, or at face value, rather than dig into the reality of it. Sometimes you need a forensic accountant.
Hmm.
Sometimes you need to really get in there if the moneyed spouse is not willing to really negotiate or understand that number isn't real.
So in any separation, there's always one party who is more prepared than the other,
Yep.
right? I mean, someone always gets the idea first. Is there anything that you could say people might think about or could do to make the financial part of it easier if they're the ones who come up with the idea first?
I think in all situations, to me, the first step is either a financial person, so you understand what you have, right? So you need to gather documents. Now today, it's a little bit harder because a lot of us have statements that are electronic. So sometimes you can't see all of those documents disclosed because they're not coming to your house in an envelope that you can open. So that can be a challenge. But you're assessing what you have, so you have an idea of what that's going to look like on the other side, and then you're talking to the right kind of attorney to understand what your expected valuation can be. And those are the beginning parts in any
Mm.
scenario that you really have to have a grip on. What is the best case scenario, and then what does it look like financially? What will my life look like if I get 50% of the assets?
Okay. Tell you mentioned a little bit about the investment or planning strategy for an entrepreneur when we started up the conversation. For one of your clients, once the divorce has been done and whatever settlement is coming to them has been paid, what does that investing strategy look like where you've got to make this money last? Can you describe that a little bit to us?
Sure. We on a very high level will talk about that as we're going through the beginning part of it, so they can have an idea of what it's going to look like. But so, say for example, you have a client who is gets a settlement and they have $3 million in a settlement agreement. 2 million is in IRAs and 1 million is in cash. So we need to decide, how old are you? Can you start taking money from retirement accounts, or are you only 45 and that's not till later? So I
So there could
look
actually be two plans, a plan to get you to 65 or whatever, and then a plan after that.
exactly.
Okay.
And there might be like a reemployment plan. Like, maybe you're going to go back to school, so we need to budget and allocate certain amount of money for 3 years of schooling and then 5 years to get that business up and running, whatever it is that you're looking to do. So it's a financial plan that's long term, but our job is to, I call it financial therapy. It's really trying to understand what it is that you want. We take your assets and make them um, operate for what your personal goals are. And that
Yeah.
changes all the time. So it's an ongoing relationship. It's an ongoing, um, it's an ongoing situation to be working with an advisor.
Let's explore that a little bit more because I've noticed over the last few years sort of a burgeoning proliferation of books and speakers and just people out there talking about money stories, people's attitude, their beliefs, and all this kind of thing,
Mhm.
and how that directs their reaction and how they make choices about money. Can you talk a little bit about the exploration around that? Because what I'm guessing is that some of the people that you're working with, if they were never the person who dealt with the money, maybe some of them were comfortable in that position, like abdicating that to a certain degree. So can you talk about that exploration or that sort of money idea therapy that you go through with some of these people?
Yeah, it's actually in my book I talk about what is your money story, because
Yeah.
it and when I'm meeting with people, I really try to understand what is their first experience with money, what is their, you know, how do they connect with it? Was it one of scarcity? Was it one of fear, or was it one of excitement and entrepreneurship? I mean, I sold Christmas cards so I could get a skateboard, right? So I did things to get what I wanted as a kid. That's not everybody. Lots of people remember their aunt being particularly stingy about money, and so they're fearful of it. So it's helpful for us as advisors to understand where they're coming from, so we can
Hmm.
speak from that perspective and help them, coach them into the best solution for them. Somebody who is terrified of money, I'm never going to get to be aggressive in their strategy for saving and have them give me all of their cash investments. They're going to have a lot of liquidity because that's their comfort level. On the other side, your entrepreneurs, they could be super assertive and aggressive and maybe a little bit reckless, right? So my job there is to talk them back off a little bit, like, okay, look, I know you want to take this risk and you're going to hustle it and you're going to make it happen. But what if we put 25% of it in something we know is going to be there, right? So that's why I always try to, talking to entrepreneurs, get them to put some money aside into traditional vehicles. And they say, yeah, but I can make 20% over here. So it's kind of hard.
Well, so this is great. I really appreciate what the stuff that we're sharing and everything in here. For somebody who like we mentioned that every divorce is always starts when one person gets the idea.
Sure.
What about a person who might get the impression that maybe their partner is thinking about it? Is there any kind of defensive thing or anything that someone should think about or try to do, or is it really just, you know, if this thing is going to happen, it's just going to be a matter of getting everything out on the desk and figuring out how it's divided up?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, from an uh, ethical and integrity perspective, my personal opinion is you should be transparent. Not everybody is, so I can't necessarily advocate for you to super plan ahead. Some attorneys, some people will give the non-money party advice to go build up your wardrobe because you got to go back to work. um, Make sure that you have a little bit of emergency money, because if you're the non-money party, you don't have cash.
Hmm.
So some of those things are appropriate, but you should probably be doing those anyway, right? Advocating for yourself in your relationship and having it be equitable. Um, so I don't know if that kind of helps answer your question.
No, it was an open-ended question because I wasn't quite sure what you would be able to share with us. When we're talking about a spouse passing away,
Hmm.
now this is, probably much more commonly planned for. You start to get into topics of life insurance and, all that kind of stuff. Have you been a part of trying to help someone who had to deal with a business after the primary entrepreneur spouse was the one who passed away? Can you give us any light into some of the scenarios that the remaining surviving spouse would have to deal with in those scenarios?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, in particularly a lot if you're unprepared. So, um, in an ideal world, you have had these discussions. You have a potential buyer. You have a buy-sell agreement. I write in my book about writing your personal family love letter, telling your spouse about where your assets are and all these things. But if you have a business partner, it's a great idea to have a business love letter where you tell your business partner, what you would do. And in my business, I did that with my business partner. And I said, look, something happens to me. I went on a trip to Africa. I left her a long love letter on a voicemail. I said, if I don't come back, here's what you need to do. You need to just keep the top 20% of the clients and sell the rest, and move on. And boom, boom, boom. You can be very clear about it if you're going on that trip and those big what ifs. But it's very challenging because sometimes you don't have the licensing. Your spouse doesn't have the licensing. Sometimes you don't have any knowledge or interest. So it's helpful to know who the accountant is, who other professionals in the industry could help you facilitate the sale, because the non-interested party, how do they know? Right?
Yeah.
My spouse wouldn't know how to sell my business, but I've listed who can help facilitate that, who are prospective buyers, who to go to, of my friends and colleagues who could step in and ask all the questions if you're not comfortable. So
I think this is a great idea, and I did something similar when I went to Africa a few years ago too,
okay,
and not to disparage Africa, but um, the
no, it's
the
amazing. It's a
I know
big
it's
trip.
beautiful. The thing in particular about a business though is that businesses are systems, and they're just so fragile that if this happens, if the owner dies, the clock has started, and whatever transition is going to happen, if the surviving spouse is going to be successful at all in selling this business, things have got to move fast. And to your point about identifying, for example, likely buyers ahead of time, who could be competitors,
Yeah,
maybe someone in the same business in another state or another area or something like that, but to at least be able to identify them, even if sort of that the top dollar price is not achieved. Sometimes it's better to sell for less than it is to hang on to it so long that the value just evaporates.
yeah, yeah, it's true. I mean, in a perfect world scenario, you have a business partner and a buy-sell arrangement. So if you and I are in business together and you don't want to be in business with my spouse and something happens to me, you get a life insurance policy and then you
Right.
buy out my spouse. And now you own the business in its entirety. That's a perfect scenario because there's cash, boom, for the client.
And already
Um,
an operator.
yeah, and you move on. But if you don't have a business partner, or if you're a lawyer or an advisor, it's a little bit more of a challenge.
If somebody watches this video and they say, "Wow, I think I might be the non-moneyed partner here in this scenario,
Mhm.
and I might be someone who could be Jennifer's client, if we get a divorce or something." Could you recommend any tools or resources that a person who feels that way about themselves could probably go to maybe kick off the learning process and maybe try to work on some of this knowledge and skills?
Sure. I mean, podcasts are fantastic. There's lots of information out there. Um, you know, I say my book, and I'm not trying to plug the sale of it because I really didn't write it to sell it, to make money off of the sales. But it's so absorbable for the non-moneyed party. That's who I wrote it for. I wrote it for those women who leaned away from me and said, "My husband handles that." I wrote it so that there's stories and there's context. I promise it's not a difficult read, and you will walk away with at least one idea, and probably a much better comfort level with money in your household. And you'll start asking questions and talking to your spouse about it, because it's really, your money for your household is for both of you. So as a non-money party, at least when your financial advisor reaches out to you and your spouse to go to a meeting, once a year you got to go. Once a year you got to go, because whether you understand the investments or not, you're still driving the decisions. You're still
Mm.
driving the values of your family. You're still driving the planning for your own retirement, for your kids, and so on. You need to be part of that conversation. So that's the biggest thing, is to be engaged at least a little. It's not going to hurt that much.
So, and let me ask you this question about internet content with respect to financial planning and in investing. I was recently at a conference, and there was a presentation done by someone from FINRA,
Mhm.
and they were talking about content online and things like this. And someone there was a licensed professional, and they said, it's very difficult for um, responsible licensed people to be creating online content because there's such tight prohibitions and rules about the kinds of things you can say and share, etc. And the point of the gentleman's question was that, the stuff online could be a little bit lopsided because someone who doesn't have any kind of licensing or background at all could be telling you to put all your money into some kind of crypto token or something.
For sure.
And right, and the actual professionals with backgrounds in planning are kind of muted in their ability to be part of the conversation online. Well, I'm just wondering what your experience has been and what you think about that idea.
You hit the nail on the head, and I appreciate your bringing that up because, um, so in our industry, we are a little bit muted, right? So everything has to be disclosed. Everything has to be provided with some context in advance and then after the fact. So when I say go online, you do need to look at what are the licenses of the person that you're listening to. Are they registered or are they non-registered? A
Mm,
non-registered person can say anything they want, right? It's just you're not licensed. You can, it's America, it's freedom of speech. Is it going to be
yeah,
right? Probably not. So you do want a licensed professional to be speaking. So we do have to have more of a hypothetical scenario. I can't tell you that all entrepreneurs should do X, Y, and
sure.
Z. No, I have to say, hey, it depends. If you're an entrepreneur, these are the kind of scenarios. And if you want to have an offline conversation, then schedule on my calendar and we'll have that one on one. But I think to know that, oh gosh, there are things I can be doing. I'm making $1 million on it. It's pain point for me. What is she talking about? That's a discussion we need to have offline. You're not necessarily going to find a whole bunch of detailed context online.
Yeah. So, you know, caveat emptor when it comes to tuning in on people's information. Take a few moments and figure out who this person is that you're listening to, and just think for a moment if there could be some kind of conflict or something that is motivating them to say a certain thing. And yeah, Jennifer. So, squeeze the juice is the name of the book.
Yes.
And if somebody wants to reach out and have a conversation with you, where can they find you on the internet?
Sure. So my Calendly is Jennifer Modern Wealth, and Modern Wealth is my business. So you'll be able
Oh,
to
okay. So
find me
people
no
just book
problem.
appointments.
You can just book a 15-minute squeeze the juice call, right?
There you
If
go.
you want, hopefully we gave you something to start thinking about and go, how does this apply to me? But we probably didn't specifically speak to you. If you want to have that call, I'll give you a 15-minute squeeze the juice call and we'll get it done.
All right. Well, Victor's tuned in from Nottingham over in the UK. He says he's given the show a like, and I think that's a great idea. Anyone else out there who's watching live or in the recordings, please hit the like button. Leave a comment if you enjoyed the program. It lets the algorithm know on whatever platform you're watching that you like the content and it's worthy to share to other people. It's the easiest way that you can help the program out is just by leaving a comment down below. And with that, I'll say thank you very much, Jennifer. And for everyone else out there, we'll see you next time.
So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses? Easy. Go over to my blog site, davidcbarnett.com, where you can learn more about me and how I work with my clients. You can learn more about my books and courses that I've prepared for you. You can find out how to subscribe to my email list, the YouTube playlists, and more. There's literally hundreds of hours of content there, all for free, and I'd love for you to be my guest. Special thanks go to Mark Willis at Lake Growth Financial, today's video sponsor. Mark helps people better manage their personal and business finances through the Bank on Yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally and I've seen others use it successfully for years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find all the interviews I've done with Mark and learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up for a free consultation to learn what this solution might look like for you.